Welcome everyone listening to this podcast that we're recording via Clubhouse. And as usual, joining me this afternoon is Shanaaz, and our event is called My Life, My Business. Wish I was here. And it always centers on enjoying this journey called life, whether specifically you're very focused on your career or your business or your life, but it doesn't really matter. It's still the journey called life. And are we enjoying it every single day? Are we so energized when we wake up knowing that we've got things to do, and in particular, things to do with the people around us? And we've spoken about so many different things. In fact, Shanaaz shared the alternative trauma checklist with us, and we entitled this particular podcast, How to Find Joy in Traumatic Circumstances. And you can listen to it either on the platform, Clubhouse, or you can listen to it on YouTube under the channel called the Mufasa Coaching Practice, and you'll find it there. Welcome, Julia. But I want to kind of link what we want to talk today, and really there were just a couple of things in that alternative trauma checklist that I wanted to just use as a basis for a conversation I want to have this afternoon. And really, what just transpired, we had a wonderful weekend in particular. And I mean, if you're listening to this and you're not a sports enthusiast, well, then you would probably wonder why. What is this whole thing about? Why are we so excited? Well, we are excited because guess what? The Springboks recaptured, our national team recaptured and defended the Rugby World Cup, and is the only team that has won this cup now 4 times, and the only team to have defended it. Meaning the Springboks were World Cup champions in 2019, and they are now again in 2023. And what has this got to do with the alternative trauma checklist? I tell you what, it was nail-biting stuff. So when I say trauma, I mean it in inverted commas, that transpired really on Saturday. It was absolutely nail-biting stuff. And anyway, so there are really four questions on this checklist that I want to use as by way of introduction. And that was the first question that Shanaaz shared with us: how do you protect yourself physically and emotionally during the event? Or was the first question that I really made a note of. And so what event am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the Rugby World Cup final. And let me tell you what, the protection here basically was wearing the rugby jersey, number one. And you're probably thinking, well, what do I mean protection? Well, it's wearing the badge of honor on the heart. And also making sure that as you wear this jersey, the big deal is how to blend in with a large crowd of people. You know, let me tell you something. The adage of safety in numbers, when we're all hoping for the best, rooting for our team, trusting that the outcome is going to be favorable, but not sitting alone at home and going through this kind of anxiety on your own. And the jokes and the camaraderie during the match, absolutely wonderful. And then the other question was, well, how did you comfort others during the anxiety? Very easy. Lots of high fives, lots and lots of commiserations and sharing the disappointment during the journey, which is of watching. Well, during the journey. See, I'm so used to talking about journey, but during the match. And it's actually quite the fact that you are in proximity of others is comfort in itself. But being able to share the disappointment, to to connect with the people around you in a way. Now, I know, Shanaaz, this isn't, I am ripping your checklist completely out of proportion, but you know what? Guess what? We comfort each other by also buying drinks for one another to calm the nerves. And how did others comfort you? I mean, it was actually quite, and this is the being in a crowd, in a like-minded crowd, like-hearted, sharing the passion, focused on the same thing, hoping for the same thing. That mutual comfort certainly was what I got from the experience on Saturday night, and and there was one question that asked whether we whether it's possible to have found ways of encouraging others during the event, and in this case during the match. Absolutely, it is when points have been scored against the Springboks, and being able to just just a tap on the shoulder, and it's okay, we will get there. The different things that we say to one another, don't worry, it's going to happen. And also, especially when we're about to score, is to jump up enthusiastically and to shout for the best outcome. And by the same token is being encouraged by others. How others encourage you, seeing, there's a note of disappointment on you, is reminding you, just take a sip of the drink. You'll feel better, whatever it is you're drinking, alcoholic or non-alcoholic drinks. So the and this is rather just tongue in cheek, and I think I know if you go and listen to the playback or the YouTube podcast, you'll find that the entire checklist was being shared, and it's a serious one. It's a wonderful one where that in traumatic circumstances, how do you find joy? And obviously there's post things. I'm not going to go through all of that. So anyway, but talking a little bit about this Rugby World Cup final specifically. The last time this epic battle was firstly enacted was in 1995 when the New Zealanders, the All Blacks, played us here in Johannesburg, in actual fact, in 1995. And it was an amazing match. And needless to say, the Springboks won. And to have a repeat of this match with the two big, powerful teams again on a Saturday was extremely epic. I mean, New Zealand's journey was a bit of a rocky one initially. I mean, they lost against France in their opening match, and everybody thought this is a has-been team, nearly writing them off. They're not the same, they're not, and so forth and so forth. And us winning the last 3 weeks by a 1-point margin prior to the final. 1-point margins, close matches against England, against France, and so on. And really looking forward to this match. And during the match, I looked at some aspects of the match, and I kept on thinking to myself, but this mirrors life for sure, because it wasn't even long into the match we had our first yellow card. One of our players got injured, a pivotal player, which kind of changed the dynamics of the match somewhat, and changed our set piece play and so forth. But that first yellow card was really, I guess, unplanned. No team goes in to get a yellow card. And, I was thinking about yellow cards. These are the things that, if and mostly for unsafe tackles and cynical play, you get sent off into the sin bin, as they call it, and you have to spend 10 minutes off the field while your team plays with an undermanned squad. And so the All Blacks, firstly, when they were yellow carded, I mean, I was hoping that it would not destroy the match, in a sense that people turn around and say the one team beat the other one because of these cards, these penalty cards that were being issued. And so for the first 10 minutes, New Zealand played without one of their players, and so on. And I sometimes think to myself that even though it was unintentional and the player was really trying to do his best, and I'm talking about the All Black side, he got a penalty. And I was thinking, many times we might call them accidents, we might call them errors, misjudgments, or generally, we did our very best and the outcome was not quite what we wanted while we were pursuing a particular goal, especially when we're pursuing a particular goal. We pumped up, we've worked hard for that moment, and we're in the moment, and in the moment something happens. And suddenly we have to deal with an outcome that we didn't plan for. Nobody plans to play this game and decide that there will be a yellow card that's going to come. There's no probability of getting a yellow card. I mean, and I think this is kind of how life goes too, is that now suddenly you're sitting with a disappointment, is that if only you didn't have this your geyser, for example, especially in winter, the kind of winter that we had, burst geysers, for example, not just the leak that eventually builds up to a ceiling crashing down on you while you were sleeping or wherever the geyser is being mounted, and the resultant damage to carpets and furniture and the like, and the complete inconvenience of it. Suddenly you have this, insurance pays, but then we have something called excess, so you have to pay that money where you could have used that money for something else, and suddenly you lament that. And there are times when we count, and superstitious people would call it, well, things happen in threes, and suddenly you that's the geyser, and suddenly something happened to the car and it had to be towed, you got stuck with it, and so on and so on. And suddenly the things that you depend on, the system that you depend on now is so severely stressed, in a sense, and now you cannot depend on those things as tools, or on even the finances that you wanted to use to achieve something that you were aiming for, and what do? Do you now just give up, sit down, and or do you still continue to play the game of life regardless? Do you still continue to try hard? Do you still, even though your system is messed up, your budget is messed up, and so on and so on, do you use that as reasons for not continuing? And so what this game has just shown, I mean, they eventually, one of the yellow cards were actually turned into a red card, and the All Blacks permanently lost the player and their captain, no less, for the rest of the match. And as I was watching this dynamic, this team could have felt so hard done by. Obviously, they didn't agree with the referee and whatever, but in actual fact, instead of being weakened, this galvanized them into playing like a team possessed. They only had 14 players, now for the rest of the game playing against the Springboks. But the Springboks themselves got 2 yellow cards at different times of the match. And so, they were then matched equally as in terms of player, 14 players playing 14 players. But for the most part, the All Blacks were playing at a complete disadvantage. And let me tell you, this team did not look like they were going to roll over and play dead. This team, as I said, just played completely. It didn't feel like they were playing with a handicap. It didn't even look like it. I mean, that's why we were biting our nails, as it were, and being anxious in terms of just how they applied themselves. And so, whether it's fair, whether it was unfair, they came prepared to play the game to win. And when curveballs came, when the penalty cards kicked in, and it felt like some of the things were going against them, this team did not give up at all. And by the same token, let me tell you. So the Springboks didn't didn't give up when they had yellow cards. So there were a couple of other things that happened during the match with the missed kicks and the missed tackles and some awesome tackles in defense and disallowed tries and so on. I just thought this game in the end showed the battle between two sides that were there to win. They were going to do everything in their power to win. They arrived, and the intensity of the battle you could clearly see. You couldn't really choose between the sides. And so, the final in the final, when the final whistle blew, the scoreline was 12-11 in the favor of the Boks. And it was unbelievable. We could scarcely, when the final whistle blew, yes, we jumped up out of our skins and we shouted and we screamed and so forth. But it was also a little surreal. It was like, in that moment, it was a little hard to believe that the Springboks won. And in some cases, how could they have been? It seemed like as the game ebbed and flowed, that even though the All Blacks was a man down permanently, it looked like they were going to win at any particular time. They were the only side who looked like capable of scoring tries, even with the fact that they had one player red carded. So it wouldn't be a talk if there aren't some sort of learning points from this. So I don't know what Shanaaz is going to think about this, but here's some of the pointers that I can just summarize. The first thing is what we all call gees. I don't know. It's best in Afrikaans, spirit, but the gees that you get from and actually what this means and what I want to talk about is the magic of the crowd, the magic of doing something, supporting something, joining other enthusiasts along the way. And I think this is a game and supporting the outcome for a game. But that's the same that's mirrored in life is listen, don't travel alone. Whatever you are doing, don't travel alone. Travel with others. Find fellow pilgrims, whether it's just in life or whether it's in your career or your business or some other organization. Don't travel alone. Find people that you can be enthusiastic with, that can cheer you on. We've spoken about this in so many different ways. Even in the last talk, you'll find that don't do things on your own. Seek others out. And I tell you, we believe that when the All Blacks were about to either convert their tries or kick their penalties, we screamed at the top of our lungs to get them not to get the ball to actually miss and not to convert and we believed we did that. The power of the crowd was like amazing. And here that's the magic, is feeding off each other, not giving up because the teams weren't giving up, but never again will I underestimate the magic of the crowd, or in this case, as we say in Afrikaans, the gees of the crowd of enthusiasts. All right, so number one is make sure, in order for you to keep going on the journey and to have the stamina and the endurance, right, to reach your goals, find like-minded people that can cheer you on, that can keep your enthusiasm and excitement and engagement alive. That's the first one. The second one is really, whatever you do in business, in your career, or just in life generally, is you've got to have faith. And there's nothing that and it's literally the belief and in some cases the instruction that if you want to believe for something, you believe with others. That's support, believing together. And in the Christian faith, we believe that when we ask and we have agreement in what we're asking for, there is no greater power than to ensure you get what you ask for. So faith drives you to keep a positive mantra. And I remember this, in this crowd watching this together, my neighbor said two things over and over and over. He shouted this out at the big screen. He said, "There's nothing wrong," when there was like a mistake. "There is nothing wrong. It's okay. It's okay," as if, the player could hear him. But, I never forget that phrase. There is nothing wrong. And then when they were trying to defend and they missed some tackles, he would scream, "Shut the back door!" But he kept being so positive and especially for those two missed kicks, he was shouting, "Shut the back door!" It was interesting. I love that. But faith is what keeps a positive attitude alive, is believing in the positive, believing in a positive outcome, and hope is the third thing I want to talk about. And hope drives a never say die attitude. And it's only when the final whistle blows, or in other words, the word we say is over only when the fat lady sings. But in a game, is you don't give up. You don't decide it's a hopeless, the other side is impenetrable. No, you never give up. You keep going until the final whistle blows. And by the way, so what's the mirror in life or in business? You keep going until you achieve your goal. You keep going. You never let circumstances decide the outcome. And even the weather. It is freezingly cold today, and it's in October, and it's in spring, and we've been having heat waves. And suddenly we're having this cold weather. We welcome the rain. It's just that we don't want the cold with the rain. That we leave for the Western Cape. They can keep that. Anyway, the fourth thing is belief. Believing that you stay capable of winning, can beat the other side, right? And just, I'm not talking in depth and really unpacking it to the very root, but just superficially, what do I mean by this belief and believing that you're capable of winning? Is number one, you believe that you have the tools to win. You've got the training, you've trained, you've prepared, you believe you can win. You keep on believing you can win. You don't let, once again, circumstances or the opposition or the naysayers or the people that criticize you, you don't let them destroy the power that you have and the confidence that you're having in the tools that you have, and that confidence that's showing that because we have the tools, we know we can win. We know we up against it some of the times, but you got to have that knowledge, that belief, that quiet assurance that you can win, and therefore you keep going, and it feeds your hope, and it underscores your faith. And lastly, and I mean, there's a lot more I can talk about, but these are the ones that I take out of it. The fifth thing is being flexible. Now, being flexible just means that you've decided on a strategy and a plan and how you want to achieve your goal. But once you're beginning to engage, once you're on the pitch, you got to read what's happening on the day that or the time you've decided to engage. You got to read what's going on, because listen, when you strategize and when you plan, you make assumptions. Right? You assume certain things. You base it on the knowledge that you have, that's history, and so you try and project some of the good things into the future, and therefore you come up with your plans of how you're going to achieve your goal. But listen, as you step out and you begin to do these things, just begin to know that the things that you couldn't plan for, curveballs, no curveballs are going to come, and be tactical, change what you are doing as the situation demands. Don't blindly just follow your strategy now as if the situation is as assumed. No, you assume a situation, and as you embark on your journey, as you're on your way to achieve your goals, as you started that new thing, that new venture, and you implementing the plan, and suddenly you come across things that you didn't anticipate, change the tactics as you play. And so those are the things, really. And Shanaaz, I hope you forgive me by ripping some of the the things out of your trauma checklist. But that's basically it. And yes, I see what you're saying. The coaching staff have to be flexible as well, and that is certainly what happened in the semifinal by changing, bringing in the replacement fly half early in the game when they realized it's a tight game against England, and the tries were not going to be scored. And so rather than having a playmaker, they wanted somebody who can, when the opportunity arrives, to kick the ball over the. And Pollard started, and Mani Lebok, who is the was the fly half up until for many of the games. He didn't even play because we knew it was going to be a kicking game. And so Andre Pollard kicked over all the points in the game. The 12 points came from his boot, and only the first kick looked like he was going to miss it. We nearly died, and it hit the it hit the upright, but it went over, and we loved it. So Shanaaz, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about this
Yeah,
afternoon.
so you had ripped off my alternative trauma checklist. That's fine. So I'll rip you off that. I thought this was going to be a conversation. So I'm like waiting for my moment to like, because I did watch the game too, and I'm an avid Springbok supporter. So yeah, so I had lots to say, but
Still
it's
say it.
fine. I
Still
will leave
say
it
it.
for next week. I will
Yes.
leave it for next week. In fact, I was going to say that the same narrative therapy people that whose work I use, and the techniques that they actually have a process. It's not a checklist, but they have a process which is called, when we're working with communities or young people, particularly, it's called the team of life. And you get young people, they have questions that they ask young people, or people in terms of things like who is on your team of life, in terms of who's your support team
Yeah.
in your own life.
Yeah.
And there's some amazing questions that they ask, like, what is your home ground? And
Oh.
so it's really interesting, and it's very popular. And who is your coach, and what have you
Yes.
learned from them in your life? So I think I'm going to combine that next week, and tell you that I'll come back swinging in my response. In my response. And then also, I mean, what a great example the game is to the weekend. The 2-3 games, I think, is for learning some skills about using it as a metaphor for working with others and your own life. And for me, the thing that stood out for me when I listened to the interviews afterward, was that they had said, both Sia and Ninaba said that they had an 8-year plan, because they started in 2008, and so 2019 was like lucky. They didn't it was an unexpected win, but
Yeah.
because they didn't think the team would be ready, they thought by it was planned that they want to get the 2023 cup.
Yeah.
And for me, that means, that saying that a journey of 1,000 steps begins with a single one.
Yes.
They actually planned for so many years. And I think sometimes we want automatic good results. But actually, it's you can see the journey that they all went on. There were injuries. They didn't think they were going to be able to play again. So many obstacles. And then the other thing about the game that I can maybe talk about next week is how the sport just has transcended the racial barriers and have brought us together as a country where the politics have failed and other sporting codes have failed. There is no other sport that has been able to bring us together in a divided, economically we are divided, socially we are divided, and so much inequality. But this sport somehow has been able to transcend a lot of those things, and I think it's an important lesson that we can learn from that as well. So yeah,
Absolutely.
not gonna go on. We finished. We time's up because you spoke.
Shanaz, I was thinking that you will just join, every time I
Oh,
say something. Yeah, I
oh
thought you're
no,
just gonna
no,
talk.
sorry. It's fine. It's not a problem. I was really listening. My sister came up with something and she said we need to listen twice and then understand. So I was listening twice.
Excellent. Then I so look forward to next week, and yeah, and I mean, to bringing. Yeah, I'm not even gonna talk about it. I'm just looking
Yeah.
forward to it. Yes, and
We will
absolutely.
continue with the Springbok theme and
Yes,
the
yes.
Rugby World Cup theme next week.
Absolutely. To be
Okay.
continued next week. And thank you for those
Absolutely.
listening to you. And I just want to say, if you listen to this, please don't. You can join us every Monday at 5:30, and look for our event, My Life, My Business, and join us. You can join us live. You can then come and contribute and talk and say anything. We're quite happy to just present something, but we're happy to also field a conversation, facilitate a conversation and interaction, if that is what you are so inclined to. So our time's up. Shanaaz, as usual, it's been fascinating and fabulous, and thank you, Julia, for doing your background things there. And hopefully, I hear they call it Xing and tweeting in the olden language. So thank you very much, and until next week, have a fantastic week until we
Thank
chat again.
you.
Bye.
Bye.